Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
How big are you?
Party size.
What are you into?
I go anywhere.
I don't do anything.
That's cool. Hips or lips?
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Pint, a pop culture podcast. My name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And I'm Captain Edelstein. Or Larry. Scary Larry.
You can call me Jockstrap.
Yeah, Jockstrapster.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
You can call me large, mostly naked black guy with a jockstrap and a cowboy hat.
Yeah, we got a lot to unpack tonight. Literally.
Unpack. Nice.
Unpack. First off, we're right smack dab in the middle of June, which is Pride Month. So we said, let's do something that kind of a movie that centers around the LGBTQ plus community in some way, shape, or form. So here on the main feed, we're doing 1980s Cruising, which we're going to be talking about tonight. And over on the Pint Insider Patreon, we'll be doing Bound. So a couple of films that center on characters living in the LGBTQ community in some way, shape, or form. If you are interested in finding out more history of Pride Month, which at one point was Pride Day, and I believe it was one day, and I think it was in October, not June, from what I read. But if you want to get into like all of the history of the LGBTQ plus community, you can go to the Library of Congress website. It's loc.gov/LGBT-pride-month. And much like when we did the episode during Black History Month, you go to that website and then it's just got everything. Arts and sciences, basically politics, everything and anything you could think of. And it's very interesting, again. But as we said, we are here to talk tonight about Cruising. So let's get right into it. Now, before we start, I do want to ask this. Larry, I know you said you're a fan of this movie, right? Or at least you've seen it before.
Yeah.
Okay, because you commented when we put it on. That's why I said jump on this with us. I've never seen it. Lloyd, you've never seen it?
Never seen it.
All right. I'd always wanted to see it because here's the interesting thing about Cruising is that in 1980, for sure, this necessarily wasn't like looked at like with any kind of sense of pride from the gay community. This movie was kind of super controversial, and we'll get into that as we talk about it. So Cruising came out on February 15th, 1980. Happy Valentine's Day. Directed and written by William Friedkin. You probably know him best from The Exorcist, and also a movie I love from the 70s that I'd only seen a couple years ago for the first time, Sorcerer. Have you ever seen Sorcerer with Roy Scheider? Well,
I thought you were going to go into French Connection, but whatever. Sorcerer is fine too.
I've never seen the French Connection. Don't yell at me.
That's crazy.
Don't yell at me.
Me neither, and I've got to watch it.
Oh,
yeah.
guys. Stop the fucking show.
I know. I realize it's a mistake. It's a mistake I've lived with.
We are doing Forgotten Takeover with our buddies from Forgotten Cinema. We're doing sequels this year, and they picked the French Connection too. And on the last episode of The Pint, I had to admit to them that I've never even seen the first one, so I'll have to watch both of them in the very near future. So he also wrote this film, by the way. Writing-wise, most of the stuff he wrote, he directed. But there is one movie, and this is another movie I've always wanted to see and I've never seen. He wrote but did not direct, from the mid-'80s, To Live and Die in L.A. which I've always heard is a really cool kind of like crime cop thriller. Cruising is based on the 1970 novel Cruising by a guy named Gerald Walker. He was the... Uh-oh, what? What happened?
Not according to William Friedkin.
Oh, really?
Yep. According to Friedkin, he was aware of the novel. He claims to have never read the novel. He said that he wrote this based on a series of newspaper articles about real life killings of gay people in New York City. And he and a friend of his actually started frequenting gay bars because they were so interested in the killings and they wanted to see more about the scene because they were unfamiliar with the gay bar scene, etc. And that led him to writing the movie.
All right. Well, I had read it was based on the novel. We'll give some credit where credit's due. I guess it was Gerald Walker wrote that novel. He was the articles editor for the New York Times Magazine from 1963 to 1990. Now, what Larry said, I did read that as well in terms of he got really... So this movie was offered to Friedkin, and he didn't want to do it. It was offered to him a second time a couple years later, and he chose to do it because of what Larry said. He became very interested in this story of a serial killer who was essentially tracking people down through the gay sex clubs and the leather clubs, whatever they want to call them. The other part that brought his interest up in the ensuing years is, and we've talked about this before, is the fact that on the set of The Exorcist, there was a guy named Paul Battison who was a extra in the hospital scenes when they're testing Reagan, who turned out in real life to be a murderer. He was also at one point, what's the word? Indicated or not indicted though.
Implicated.
Implicated. Thank you. Implicated in these like serial gay murders, but he was never ever like actually put to trial for it or anything. They never put that on him. So that brought Friedkin into this, which I thought was pretty interesting. I couldn't find an actual production date, but it said July of 1979. So I don't know how long it lasted. It could have been just a month. Who knows? A couple interesting things. We'll talk about the movie in a few minutes, but in the real world in New York City, and that's where this was filmed, all around Manhattan, there was a leather club called the Mine Shaft, but the Mine Shaft would not allow Friedkin or company to film there. So they found another club. It's got an X-Men connection. The Hellfire Club.
It's got a good,
yep. So it was run by Shaw, right?
Sebastian Shaw. Emma Frost. And so they found the Hellfire Club, which was another leather, I guess, gay club. And they made it up to look like the Mine Shaft.
Oh, okay.
Also,
great name for a bar, though, right?
Well, look, they say multiple names in this one. There's one called
They never named that bar, though. There's no name for it.
Not in the movie, but
right.
It's supposed to be based on the Mine Shaft. Yep. There's another one called the Cockpit. Mentions. Yeah.
There's another
the Ramrod.
Ramrod. That's
the
what
Ramrod.
I was like, wow.
The Ramrod.
We're not even hiding it.
No, there's no hiding anything.
No fucking way. But I did like how like a lot of them were like down some seedy stairs, like next to a sign. Like,
well, and here's the thing, and I know, like, look, we're doing the Pride Month, we're allies, we 100% are, but we still got to be ourselves. When I was reading like the history of this area, these clubs were all in the meatpacking district. Like that's where they are, the West Village meatpacking district, which ka-ching, it just works.
It does work, right?
Yeah. William Friedkin claims it took 50 attempts to get this thing from an X rating to an R rating at the MPAA.
I still don't know how they did it.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy part. So listen, Lloyd, what about the money?
They're fisting a guy at one point.
$50,000 to do whatever process it took to get there, and he deleted 40 minutes of footage.
40 minutes of footage. And he says that the 40 minutes of footage he said there was some character development, but he said most of it, this is crazy, was like hardcore sex stuff.
Of
Yeah.
course it was.
But like you would think like 8 minutes, 40 minutes they cut out of this movie.
And it was, what was the movie? Like an hour and 45?
Hour
Not
41.
even.
Hour
Yeah,
41.
41? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been like a 2 hour and 10 minute, pretty long movie.
Yeah, a very long movie. So he eventually gets it down to an R. So I thought that was pretty interesting. In the, I think the 2000s, he tried to put together a director's cut for DVD.
Right.
And what was it? United Artists claimed that they lost all the footage. He thinks they destroyed it.
Yeah.
So you're never going to see that. You might.
A lot of footage with Pacino too.
Well, that's what he said. He said there was some footage that because in the movie, as the movie presents it, and we'll talk about it, you never see Pacino get involved.
No, it's.
But he said he said in the deleted footage there was stuff where he gets involved in some of the goings on.
Well, and again, we'll get into it. But you have to figure that he did, right? You're undercover. You got to do the work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Like,
well,
and towards the end,
work.
he seemed to be pretty comfortable with what happens when you're cruising. Like he seemed to know, and be pretty. So yeah.
And there's a lot of things I believe in that 40 minutes that maybe not the hardcore part of it, but there has to be stuff in that 40 minutes that kind of makes the movie make more sense.
Yes, I 100% agree. When we'll talk about it, I think as we talk through the movie, but there are some things that kind of like don't come together for me at the end of this movie. So let's get into the cast, Lloyd.
Round up the usual suspects.
So we've got Al Pacino as Detective Steve Burns / John Forbes is his undercover name. He's a young policeman. Basically, he wants to, rise in the ranks, and so he's posing as an undercover homosexual person. Because why? Why does he do this, John? Why do they pick him?
Because he looks like the victims of a serial killer who is killing young homosexual men.
Right. I mean, they had him. I mean, in the movie, they've got him up on the board, and like I think the first victim looked like a dead ringer for Pacino.
Yeah, they look they're like youngish Italian guys essentially.
I guess Friedkin really wanted Richard Gere.
I read that.
Role. Yeah,
that would have worked
because he felt like he could portray the androgynous kind of spirit a little more than Pacino.
He's a little less rugged looking.
Yeah,
sure.
Yep. Yeah, he could have pulled it off too. That would have worked.
But Pacino did have a horrible afro.
He certainly did.
So there is that.
Yeah.
Just give him curly hair, and I don't know.
Oh, really, his fucking head bothered me.
It was not good.
You know what I was thinking about, and I didn't read anything with Pacino in particular. I read one thing with Pacino where Friedkin said that he felt like Pacino was uninvolved in like the storytelling process. Like he didn't add anything to it. And Pacino says Friedkin didn't direct him the way he should have.
Yeah.
We'll get to the ambiguous ending, but Pacino had a question about what the ending is supposed to mean. Right. And he said Friedkin couldn't tell him. So he didn't know what it meant himself.
Didn't know what to play.
Didn't know what to play. So they obviously had issues with each other. But here's something I thought about while watching this movie. This is 1980. This isn't the most tolerant time in the world. No. This is like 7 or 8 years after The Godfather. I wonder what a lot of Pacino's core fans thought about him starring in this movie. I could look, let's just go back to 1980 and think about like probably like our fathers or our father's generation, how they might not be the most tolerant people. And, like this is Michael Corleone. And now here he is playing an F word. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I wonder if his career took any kind of hit from this. He was Scarface 3 years later. So obviously things, recovered.
Well, what about Dog Day Afternoon? He didn't play gay, did he? But he played.
No, he is gay in that. But like
it was. Okay.
But Dog Day Afternoon is
different.
Is less of a gay movie than a movie that has a gay character. This is a gay ass movie, right? I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, this whole movie is painted on the background of like homosexual culture in New York.
Bondage,
yeah. I thought about that quite a bit.
What you just said, John, it's funny because what you just said was gay people's biggest problem with this movie is that everybody thought that this was a depiction of homosexual culture.
Right.
And it's not. It's a depiction of a very small subsect of homosexual culture, right? I know plenty of gay people. I don't think any of them,
Right.
hang out. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do, but I don't, because I don't ask them. But I don't think they dress up in assless chaps and go to these kinds of clubs. I think this is just a small subset, and the gay community was upset because they thought that this was depicting them in that light, that this was all of them. This is how
Right.
all gay people were.
And also what I read was like violent. They were afraid
Yeah.
this movie was going to indicate, because it's about a gay killer, killing these gay men, that it's going to be like, well, we're all very violent. And actually they went to the full point of, they tried to interfere with the shooting of this movie. Master, did you read any of this stuff?
Yeah, I did. I don't recall what they did.
If they knew it was filming in a certain area of New York, the gay protesters would get as close as they could and blast music, blast off bullhorns. And the one I thought was the most interesting was get on like top of buildings and out of windows and shine mirrors, like so that the light would interfere with the camera. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, I also read that the film carried a disclaimer, and I don't know how much they pushed it, that basically said this film was not intended as an indictment on the homosexual world. It is set in one small segment of that world, which is not meant to be representative of the whole.
Yeah, I read that too.
I guess that point didn't get really pushed across.
It was not on the version that I saw. I watched it on, I think, Max.
Yeah.
But it was not there because I was waiting for it to pop up and it never popped up.
Yep. Yeah, same here.
All right, who else we got?
So moving on after Pacino, because there's a shitload of people. Paul Sorvino as Captain, you could have been Edelman, Edelson, Edelstein, Captain Edel something. He was Al Pacino's boss, Steve Burns' boss. You might remember him. We talked about him in the Stuff. Obviously in Goodfellas. A lot of stuff. Paul Sorvino's, I like him. He's a good actor.
I love his job interview for Steve. You ever suck a man's cock?
Yeah.
You ever been porked?
Smoke your pole.
Yeah.
You ever been porked?
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable. And I didn't really believe Pacino. Sorry. I was like, I don't know if he's telling the truth.
Because he played it off pretty I might have.
You know what I thought was weird about this movie, and I don't know if it was like a makeup job or if it was maybe everything else he's in it was a makeup job, but did Paul Sorvino look really old in this compared to like what he looked like in The Stuff and Goodfellas?
He looked tired.
Gray hair, which he, it was probably, a dye job, but I mean, he always had black hair and everything. But yeah, he looks defeated, right? Like he's this captain of this squad, and he's given this impossible task by the commissioner of finding this killer, and there's really not much to go on.
Next we have Karen Allen as Nancy Gates. That is Steve's girlfriend. She appears way too infrequently in this movie. I think, they use her as trying to like a gauge of his gayness or whatever. That's another whole confusing part. But I wish there was a little more of her in the movie.
There's one scene that I think what you just said happens. The scene where they have sex, I think is meant to make you think that maybe he's starting to get into guys because he's on top of her banging her really hard.
Yeah, he's rough, pretty rough.
He's rough. And then when she's on top of him, he looks like he's not enjoying it at all.
Yeah.
And then when she travels down to blow him, he puts his head up almost like he's, and this is just me inferring that he's like picturing someone else doing it,
No, that's exactly what it is. And that's why she's there, each time, because they do it several times, right? He has a moment when he's in the club and he's watching all the gay stuff, and then he ends up with her, and each time he's less interested in
it's always right after he's in a gay club.
He's less interested each time.
Then we have Richard Cox as Stuart Richards.
Come on, fucking Manster.
That's his name, Richard Cox.
Yeah.
As the serial killer, which is also a bit vague, but We'll
Well,
get there.
because the serial killer's literally played by like 4 different people.
That's
throughout the-
right. That's one thing
Yeah.
that really
Played
confused me.
played by one of the victims at one point.
Yeah, in
played
the
by-
beginning, the guy who
Yeah, it's
plays the
somebody
killer ends
different.
up being like the second victim.
Is that what happened?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
guy
very-
that
it's
went
very-
into the woods.
Yeah, and
Remember
his
the two
voice
guys
is
go in the
his
woods?
voice is ADR completely by somebody who's not even in the movie. It's very
Okay.
It's meant to be ambiguous.
So you see the killer's face in the first scene
Yeah.
with sunglasses on and everything. So, but you can
Right,
still see his face. When we get to the end of the movie and realize that it's Richard Cox doing all this Stewart, I'm like, that doesn't look like the guy from the
Yeah,
first
you can't
scene.
just use a different actor for the killer.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm a little confused on that. All right.
Then we have Don Scardino as Ted Bailey, Steve's friendly playwright neighbor. I like this guy. I kind of wish we had gotten more of him in the movie.
Yeah. So does Steve.
Yeah, right. I guess this guy, I looked him up. He did a lot of directing. After this movie, he didn't do much acting, but he directed a lot of TV stuff. Then as his roommate / boyfriend, I guess, James Remar as Gregory from The Warriors, Drugstore Cowboy, and one of the Hellraiser Inferno. Yep.
James Remar in green little tidy whities
Green
packing
belt, yeah.
packing a big
Whitey
old
Green,
dick.
yeah.
A big old dick for James Remar.
That was another really strange scene. Like, why did Pacino go back?
Because Pacino loved Ted. Pacino was falling. This movie, like, there's layers. I think this movie will work better on a second viewing. To be honest with you, I'm not saying it didn't work well, but I think there's layers that you got to kind of like start putting your head into. He was. Yeah, well, we'll get into it. We'll get into the movie.
Yeah. All right. Joe Spinell as Patrolman D. Simone, who is absolutely creepy as shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Probably as creepy as he was in Maniac.
Oh, there you go. We got the Maniac shirt.
Larry's wearing the Maniac shirt. Nice. Yeah. Also in Rocky and The Godfather.
You ever go to Clam Casino?
He was greasy, but not as greasy as in Maniac.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
And his patrolman buddy, Mike Starr as Patrolman Desher, also creepy, but not quite as creepy.
Yeah,
And
Mike Starr.
These two guys, I don't know. They were just because he ends up patrolling the gay bars and stuff, and like then being a customer.
I was a little confused at the beginning because they were inferring that these guys were cops because they're in uniform. But then like one of the guys says that people dress up like cops all the time and these guys aren't really cops. And I'm like, is that a whole second subplot? Are these guys cops or not? And then Mike Starr disappears totally.
Yeah.
But then you see Spinell in the gay bar at one point dressed in leathers, but then he shows up at the end of the movie on patrol and
Right.
Yeah.
I'll just do 2 more because I'm probably not even halfway through. Powers Booth as the hanky salesman.
Yeah.
So
it was
weird.
fun seeing him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have all those hanky colors written out if you want to go to that later.
Oh, when we get to that scene, I absolutely
Yeah.
want you to go over it. Yeah.
Yeah. From Red Dawn, Frailty, Sin City. Ed O'Neill, I did not see him. Did you
Yeah,
guys
oh.
notice Ed O'Neill?
He was in
Yeah.
the steakhouse. He was one of the cops in the steakhouse.
Oh, is that what he was?
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
he was
all right,
also
I'll
in the room when the big black guy with no pants and a cowboy hat came in.
How did I not notice that? Okay.
The cop that Ed O'Neill goes to the steakhouse with was in a couple scenes prior. So when they go to the steakhouse, I'm looking at the cop that I've already seen in the movie. When they sit down and they order and his voice comes up, I went, that sounds like fucking Ed O'Neill. And then I look at him and I go, that is young
Full head of
fucking
hair.
Yeah. I think he's even billed as Edward O'Neill in this movie.
Yeah,
if I'm
Edward
correct.
O'Neill.
Yeah. Full head of hair, probably a few years out of his, he was a college football star. He tried out with the Steelers and got hurt. He
Polk
could have been a
High,
pro.
Polk.
Yeah. Yeah. Polk High 33, number 33.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and check that out just to be mad at myself.
He orders his steak rare.
Yeah, rare. He's the
Yeah.
rare guy. Okay.
He's the rare guy. Yeah.
And I'll say one more. I don't know who he is, but he played a role. Jay Acavone as Skip Lee. He was one of the suspects. He was the waiter in the steak restaurant.
Yeah. The pint all-time most interesting scenes ever being that interrogation scene. Like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. All right.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So we get into this movie and it starts off essentially with a couple guys on a boat, I think probably in the East River or something, and they see an arm floating. They bring it to the coroner, and there's a cop there, and essentially we find out that there have been body parts like just kind of washing up all over the place, which I don't even know if that even works into this rest of this movie, because was our killer cutting people up or no?
That's what they think.
Okay, because it didn't seem like the bodies were.
Because
anyways.
remember, they even asked, they're like, could he cut or
Could you cut off an arm with this
fucking steak knife? And they're like, well, it'd have to be strong, but yeah. So yeah, they're trying to tie them both together.
Yeah.
But it is New York City, so there's probably a couple people operating out there doing weird things.
Sure.
So we eventually find out that the task force that's been created to find out who is, as quoted in the paper, the homo killer, the cop who is trying to figure out who this killer is Paul Sorvino, and he's got pressure. He's a typical, movie police captain. He's got pressure from above, and so he calls into his office, plainclothes officer Steve Burns, who's Al Pacino. He basically tells him, "Look, I'm going to put you undercover, but you're going deep undercover.
You're going deep.
You're going balls deep, Steve. I'm the only one that's going to know. I'm going to see you once a month to pay you in cash, and you're going to go deep into the heart of the New York City bondage, gay leather community. And you're going to try to figure out who this killer is." So that's the setup right there. Steve immediately moves into an apartment that appears to be maybe the whole apartment building might be homosexual men. I know that there were places like that at one point. And he meets Ted, who Lloyd had described is a young gay playwright. And immediately, Larry, right? You feel like these guys, Steve seems to like him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he likes him or if he's trying to get, he's trying to befriend anybody in the community so he can start digging deep. But he definitely starts hanging out with him, and definitely seems like he does take a liking to him as the movie goes on. He sort of becomes a little protective of him. Actually. Yeah.
We find out, through conversation that this character has a boyfriend who's a dancer, who's out touring the world. That's James Remar. But he's got his home life set up. The second part of his job, obviously, is to get integrated into the gay community. And he does this by visiting, as we joked about earlier, but it's true, the clubs in the meatpacking district in the West Village, basically every night. There's not a montage, but there are 58 different scenes of him going to these different clubs and kind of getting, learning about everything. Here's some things I learned in a gay club, in this movie at the very least. If it's not true in real life, then it's not true in real life. There's at least always one guy blowing another guy in front of everybody. Larry, am I right? Every scene.
In every scene, yeah. But I've actually been to a gay bar, and it didn't happen.
That's why I said in this movie.
Yeah, in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
triangles in Danbury, nobody was blowing anybody that I saw.
Yeah. I went to the Riot quite a few times, and nothing going on there. Some dancing, but
yeah, a lot of dancing.
A lot of sexy dancing stuff, but no actual blowing.
There's
no blowing, nightsticks either. Yeah.
Oh, that happened.
Yeah.
There's blowing nightsticks. Did I miss a scene? Was there
Oh God, one of those 58 scenes. One guy was going down real hard
when it was
precinct night.
Yeah, when Pacino got kicked out of precinct night, the guys were blowing each other's nightsticks.
That's pretty ironic that the undercover cop is the only one that's not dressed like a cop, and he gets kicked out
of precinct night.
Yeah, he gets kicked out of precinct night.
Oh, one thing I also learned is guys actually get fisted.
Well,
right in the bar.
Yeah, so there's a scene in this where Pacino walks into what I can only describe as the 75th annual Crisco Presents World Fisting Championships. He is standing there, and there's a gentleman kind of in like bondage gear, and he's being kind of held up with it, held up by his arms, and then his body is out and his legs are spread open, and then there's a gentleman watching, and one guy is literally greasing his arm up to his fucking elbow. And
he's going in.
He is going into the brain on this dude.
Yeah.
And
shunting.
It's like a shunting.
He's shunting.
He certainly shunts this guy. I wonder if in the deleted scenes they show, I mean, obviously not penetration, but like they maybe show more of the act, because they don't, that's enough. That's pretty.
But that was a great. Well, all right. Let me rephrase. It was part of a great scene because that's also where you get Pacino dancing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
The
shit.
wacky. Oh my.
Yeah,
goodness.
he takes. I think which I suspect was ether. Like he's fucking just huffing ether, and then just starts. Flailing angrily. Almost, it's a crazy dance scene.
That was the only time you ever see Pacino sort of integrate with them. That one scene.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of
everything else was just walking around. Looking.
One guy walks up to him and just starts rubbing his titty. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He just stared at him right in the eye.
Yeah.
He's just rubbing his titty. I'm like, where's this going to go? And then it ends like, okay. Right. Like, I thought this was going to go somewhere.
Then there was that one time when P guy, I forget his name.
Oh, he got real mad.
Yeah, where he's wearing a yellow hanky.
Yeah, let's get into the rules of the hankies real quick, and then we can discuss the P guy scene. But Pacino definitely dances like he's on something, and I don't know, I didn't dig too hard into any more of what they might have been huffing because I was afraid of what I'd get on my computer. But right. But like, there's also in the earliest scene in the movie. So in the beginning, we do see the first murder scene where this guy picks up another guy at the bar. They go back to a hotel. They clearly fuck. And at one point, one of the guys huffs something. Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's like maybe supposed to be or is like ether maybe is like a drug of some sort.
I think the drug of choice was amyl nitrates for that crowd. But I think amyl nitrate, they're like poppers. So they
okay. But that shit wouldn't calm you down. Like
no, ether would, but amyl nitrates would fucking jazz you all up.
Because I was surprised, like in that scene John was just describing, that guy was so submissive to the killer, to the point where the killer, like, he knew the guy was going to kill him, basically, and he just did everything without resisting at all.
Right. I think he was flummoxed by the amount of wrestling magazines on the floor.
Yeah.
He was like, wow, Bob Backlund's on the cover of this. Did you see that? Did you notice
that?
The floor was littered with wrestling magazines.
Yeah.
Not gay magazines, pro wrestling magazines.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Which some would say may also be gay magazines.
Yeah.
But no, they were like pro wrestling magazines. Speaking of, rest in peace, Iron Sheik, as of today.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Bob Backlund was on the cover of one. It was like, I was like, wow, that's weird. I didn't know that pro wrestling and the gay community went hand in hand.
Like
according to William Friedkin, they do.
I was gonna say it was almost like pro wrestling and Cyndi Lauper at one point. Yeah. It was like instead of the Rock and Wrestling Connection, it was the Cock and Wrestling Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically hogties this guy, and then it's pretty terrifying. He stabs him in the back, murders him. Did you guys catch the subliminal stuff?
Oh, the porn? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Injected into that scene? No.
Did you see it?
I didn't actually see it, no.
I caught it, and Lindsay was not watching with me, but she was kind of like half paying attention. And I said, did you see that? And she goes, no. And I rewound it bit by bit, like frame by frame, and it's a cock going into an ass. And it happens 2 times in the movie, or at least that I caught. Happens in that murder scene, and then in the murder scene, I think in the adult bookstore.
Tyler Durden's fucking splicing scenes in like he always does.
Yeah. So Lloyd, at one point in his acclamation to the gay subculture, Burns goes into a shop run by a Kindly Powers booth, and there is like a rack of all different colored handkerchiefs, and he says, "Hey, you want to buy something?" And he goes, "No, I'm just looking. I'm just browsing today." But what do all those mean? What are the colors?
I was going to ask you guys what is your hanky of choice?
Well, tell me what they are. I know what the yellow one. I know what the yellow one is.
So you got the light blue hanky in the left pocket means you want a blowjob. The light blue hanky in the back right means you're going to give a blowjob. The green hanky in the back left is you're a hustler. The green hanky in the back right means you're a buyer. The yellow hanky in the back left means you give golden showers. and the yellow hanky in the back right means you receive golden showers. And then he started saying the red, but Pacino's like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There were more
That's
colors
all I
there.
need.
I kind of wanted to know the rest of the colors.
He's like, as soon as you got to yellow to golden showers, that I was done. That's what.
Yeah.
But then later he's wearing a yellow one. He's wearing a yellow one.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, hey, fucking let me pee on you. He's like, no, I just like to watch. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
That guy,
that hanky out of your pocket, asshole.
Yeah.
that guy was a stickler for the gay club hanky rules, because he was like, then don't wear your fucking yellow hanky around your neck, asshole.
Did you notice his belt buckle too?
No.
He had that light up. I don't know what it said. I tried to read it, but it was this really cool light up belt buckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in those 58 scenes. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. But
so much.
As the movie moves along, we get a couple more murder scenes. We get one in a adult bookstore where a couple guys
You made me do that.
Yeah, you made me do that. A couple guys go in to watch a porno in in a viewing booth, and the killer kills this a clothing store impresario of some sort. And
I've never been in one of those booths.
No.
There was a porn store in Bridgeport. I wonder if it's still there. And they had those booths, and I was always curious, but I was like,
yeah,
I'm kind of too scared to go in that.
yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen back there. And it wasn't because of this movie, but I'd seen The Howling, and that's where fucking.
Oh right.
I don't need any werewolf attacking me back there. Which actually, thinking about it, might be the least of my worries.
Most likely,
a werewolf attack. But,
yeah.
Hey, what did you think of that scene where Pacino comes back, and so it's him and Paul Sorvino, and Pacino's like saying, "Look, I can't handle this shit. I want to get out." And Sorvino's playing pool. By the way, he doesn't sink a single ball.
Oh,
he sucked. Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible.
But he was kind of like laying it down, saying, "Look, you got to get me out of this. I can't handle it." And he's like, "Oh, fuck you. You got to do it."
Well, do you think so? We're going to get into what's happening here. Do you think he can't handle it because he knows that he might be gay?
That's so ambiguous. I don't know.
Larry, do you think at the end of the day, in this movie, do you think Steve Burns is a closeted homosexual man to begin with?
This early?
Well, I think it's fair. I think and then we could iron it out.
No, I don't think if he is gay, I don't think he knows. I think he's probably raised in a typical 60s fucking Italian Catholic household, and there's no fucking possible way he could be gay in his head. I think maybe he's learning differently throughout the course of the film.
Okay. Do you feel the same way, Master?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think he knew that. But, that scene early on, like you said, when he said, "Hey, have a man ever sucked your cock?" He's like, "No." And he's like surprised and shocked. Yeah. But he kind of had a little smirky smile on his face,
My thought of the whole thing is like he's on this mission for, they don't say, but it seems like it's quite a while. And from all the scenes they show, it seems like he's going to these clubs every night. You think there'd be like one night he's like, not tonight. Yeah. Tonight I'm going to sit in and watch
Three's Company.
Three's Company. Tonight's Three's Company night. But but even then he's like looking at his watch. He's like 8:30. It's going to be too close for comfort. I don't like that show. I'm going to go to the gay bar after this is over.
And he also does that after the killer is gone, right? After everything's all solved, he goes to the gay bar by himself one last time before he goes home to his girlfriend.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
That's him. That's him.
Pretty far now. Now we're at the end of the movie.
Yeah, let's not.
The end of the movie. All right, so let's.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's get into what I think is the next most interesting and flummoxing bit of this movie. So eventually we get a suspect by a guy named Skip Lee. Skip is a frequenter of these clubs. He works at a steakhouse in Penn Station, and Steve almost has a rendezvous with him, but he knows that he thinks this guy might be the killer, so he avoids him. But he tells the police that there's this guy Skip that is suspicious, and I think he might be the guy. So we get the scene where they go to his steakhouse, and eventually they arrest him and they bring him in. Right? They actually
it's like a sting operation because they go to a hotel room,
the motel, because Burns goes with him, and so we get Ed O'Neill and we get the other cop, and they raid this room. And when they raid the room,
bro, 742 cops.
Yeah.
Bust into that fucking. I get that Pacino's a cop and they can't get the fucking audio from the wire, but maybe you got a dozen.
Yeah.
Right? How many do you think you need?
I don't know if there's anything funnier than the cops busting into the room.
Dude, it looked like the scene where all the cops are chasing the Blues Brothers through
Yeah.
fucking. There was like hundreds of cops.
1,700 cops break through this motel room door, and we get Skip Lee like kind of hovering over a hog-tied Al Pacino,
Yeah.
who is just looking at the cops going, "What are you doing?"
Going, hoo-ah!
Hoo-ah!
Yeah, totally into it, I think.
Well, I mean,
Because he's got a great ass.
so I mean, I think this is another
and you got your fist all the way up it.
Crisco time. I just feel like this scene, right? Like, so they break in and Steve is so submissive to this guy, right? Like, to the point where he lets him completely naked hogtie him, where this is how the victims have died in the previous murders. But there's also the thought of, did we just walk in on like Steve about to have like this sexual experience?
Yeah.
Right. And when he's yelling at the cops, like, what are you doing? He's not inferring that he's a cop himself, but he's inferring like, almost like, why are you here right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You came in too soon. What are you doing?
But too soon I'm not even sure if he meant too soon that this guy was going to murder me. I'm wondering if he was like,
get some butt action here.
Right. I was about to get drilled, guys. You 1,700 of my fellow cops just cock blocked me in front of everybody. But now's the flummoxing part. Larry, I want to throw this at you. The interrogation scene.
Oh God, I love it.
Can you kind of walk us through what happens here and then explain to me, because they don't explain to you in the movie at all, who the black guy was?
Yeah, so you've got Al Bundy is in the room. Paul Sorvino is in the room. Maybe two other cops plus whoever Sorvino's boss is. I don't know if he's like the chief of chiefs of police. I don't know who that guy is, but he's the one who's telling Sorvino at one point, listen, you've had a nice career, but if you don't get this fucking finished, you're through and I'm through.
Right.
So that guy's in the room too. And what's his name? Stan Lee? Skip
Lee. Yeah.
Spike Lee. Skip Lee is being
Stan Lee.
Yeah.
he's banging he's banging Steve from behind going, Excelsior.
Make mine Marvel. Yeah, so Skip Lee and Pacino is being interrogated because they have to keep playing, right? They can't let this guy know that Pacino's a cop. He's gotta be busted just like them. So they're interrogating the both of them, trying to basically get this guy to admit that he was going to stab Pacino. He's like, oh, where was the knife? You were going to fucking stab him. You killed this guy. You killed that guy. And Pacino's like, it was my room. Like, he was, sticking up for him, still playing the role, still undercover, even though all the cops know who he is. He's still undercover. And then all of a sudden, the fucking door busts open.
Yeah, this is so weird.
And prime Jim Brown is standing there. Yeah. And when I say prime Jim Brown, I'm talking about like fucking in his glory days of being the best running back of all time, standing there in nothing but a jockstrap and a cowboy hat. And everybody like just looks back at him perplexed. And he just walks over to Pacino and fucking cracks him an open-handed slap right across the face, knocks him straight out of his chair, flies into a fucking wall. And then he just turns around and walks away and shuts the door. And everybody in the room is like, what the fuck was that? Pacino, like they're like trying to ask Pacino more questions. He's like, no, who the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Like, where the fuck is that? Almost makes me feel like he didn't even know like that scene was in the fucking script.
Yeah.
Like the guy just walked in and slapped him. He's like, hold on, fucking cut, time out here.
And if that was the case, I think that was a brilliant move. That was probably the best part of the movie.
It was just a hysterical scene. So then wisely, the other cops are all right, let's split these two up because that's what a cop would do, right? We're going to split them up and try to get the story from each of them. So they split them up. They bring Pacino to the next room. now Pacino can get out of character. And he walks over to the black guy. He's like, "What the fuck, man? You really hit me!" And he takes his hat off, throws it out the window.
The black guy is also still in nothing but a Speedo and reading a book.
Paper.
Yeah, a paper. Yeah. He's sitting there just reading the paper. But like, that's it.
Then like 3 minutes later, they're interrogating the other guy alone. And the black guy walks in again. You're like, holy shit. No hat this time because Pacino threw it out the window. But we're like, holy shit, it's going to happen again.
Doesn't he double slap him? He like forehand and backhand.
He gives him a regular slap and then a backhand slap. And then that's never explained.
So weird.
No.
It is literally in the Pint history, one of those scenes that I'll never forget. If I forget most of this movie by next year, I'm always going to remember because I wouldn't remember.
The official slapper for the 6th precinct?
That's what I'm saying.
Is that his job?
I feel like there has to be something in those 40 minutes that explained who giant semi-naked black guy in the precinct is,
right,
because
the jockstrap on.
Yeah,
Skip Lee was he was very intimidated. He'd give up anything.
Next time I get mad at somebody, I want to send in a black guy, a large black guy with a jockstrap and a cowboy hat, just to smack the shit out of him.
It'd work. It would definitely. I wouldn't see it coming.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
That's huge.
No, he was a big dude. So we eventually weed out that Skip Lee is not. The killer.
We knew that. I mean, there is no way he was ever going to be the killer.
Too easy.
Well, but here's the thing. So, Manster, I want you to bring us through.
You don't want to talk about the ball test?
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. What? Okay. Yeah.
That was Al Bundy, Lloyd. That was
Al Bundy said that? All right.
Take your pants down. We're going to give you the ball test.
With a floating ball test.
Yeah. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, we're going to fill that sink up with water, and you're going to dip your balls in it.
Right. And if they float,
you're our guy. What? I'm sorry. What's happening?
So I was actually trying to assign logic to it, which is really stupid, because we know that the killer is shooting blanks. They said it earlier. He has no sperm.
How are you supposed to find a guy with no sperm? This is terrible. You can't possibly find a serial killer with no sperm.
Right. Well, but then in my head, I'm thinking, is there some kind of real actual test where like balls without sperm in them float or something? Like, I'm actually trying to assign logic to it, and I forgot all about that line until you just said it again. So thank you for bringing that up. That is pretty good. Yeah. So Lloyd, why don't you talk to us about who the actual killer is?
All right. So if the first 58 scenes of the movie was Al Pacino going to gay bars, the next 58 scenes of the movie is him staking out this college grad student. Yeah. This is like a music college grad student. And I forget how he actually comes across or figures it out, but
Servino gives him the yearbook.
Oh, the yearbook, right?
Yeah. Of the first guy that got killed was a college professor,
right? And they have the check marks on their over their
names. They got in the yearbook from that college and was like everybody checked off was a past student of the first victim.
That's right. So one of these guys, who I guess Steve thinks maybe he's seen him or recognized him in some way, or maybe just looked like he fit the bill, but he looked like the guy. He fingered him there, so he figured out where this kid lived. And there's like 58 scenes of him spying on this kid from different vantage points.
Yeah.
And
not even trying to hide it either.
Right, no.
He's
sitting on the wall,
sitting on his fucking wall.
Like at one point, the kid looks out the window,
and he's just
like
standing
Pacino is right there, like practically waving to him,
just standing there.
But when the kid leaves,
I got to tell you, I felt triggered though when he kicked in the window fan because my house has been broken into like that. Yeah. Like when I lived in Brisbane,
mine too.
They would kick my AC in and fucking rob my house. I was like, motherfucker! Like, I was real mad at Pacino.
And he does break in, and he
again doesn't try to hide it.
Drops the window fan. I think that was a mistake in the scene, but I think it really works.
Yeah. But like he goes through those letters and he doesn't put them back.
Right. No.
He wants him to know he was in there.
Yeah. Right.
He is baiting this guy because we'll talk about it, but what happens at the end, like between them is all Pacino. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
It is.
He definitely put him there.
I mean, I don't know when we need to get it. I don't have many problems with this movie. And I understand why some people do, and we'll talk about that, but I have one big problem. And it's everything that Lloyd is about to talk about, so I'm going to let him get to that, and then I'll talk about my one big problem.
All right.
So he does find this package of like a shoebox of letters, all to Richard, whatever. It was the kid's father. At this point, we still don't know anything about the kid's father, but we do see that, and he sees his outfit, right? The helmet, the hat with the eagle on it. So then we see the kid like he's sitting on his bed, right? And then all of a sudden we're seeing into his psyche, like what's motivating this kid, which I don't think this is what another thing that was vague, not very clear. But now we see this killer sitting on a park bench with his dad, talking to his dad. And his father is very disapproving, but again, there's no clear, it's not like you can't say that his father's upset because he's gay or that he hates gays or anything. There's no inclination of anything like that at all. And the kid's like, Dad, very typical, father son thing. Dad, everything I do to try to please you is just wrong. I can't do anything right. And the father says, you know what you have to do. Right. And basically that snaps him out of the whole thing. And so then Pacino basically just gets to a position where, he gets this guy and meets them in a park at night.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get to the
starts,
the end game. Before we get to the end game, also just to throw it in there because it's kind of important. Pacino has an encounter with the James Remar character that kind of gets violent. Right. Over Remar is jealous because the Ted character is like always talking about the John Forbes guy, and so they get into like kind of a physical confrontation. And part of it is that Pacino earlier in the movie, Forbes or Burns hears them arguing about him at one point. So that's going to lead into the end too. But Larry, what is your problem with what Manster was talking about there?
So the thing that's always bothered me, right, is that we said it. Pacino is not at all hiding the fact that he's fucking stalking this guy. He's sitting outside his house. The guy clearly sees him. The guy knows that Pacino broke into his fucking house. The guy sees that he's gone through his fucking letters. The guy sees Pacino sitting out there. But then when he meets him in the park, he has to know who this guy is. He knows. Yeah. And he knows that he's been watching him, so he knows it's for a reason. He knows that Pacino's read through his letters, so he knows that he's crazy. So why would he think that Pacino's trying to actually hook up with him? I don't know that he's figured out Pacino's a cop, but he's figured out that Pacino is onto him.
Do you think that
unless he doesn't know that he's a killer?
Yeah, I almost wonder if this is the movie maker's way of saying, and I could be totally wrong.
Maybe he's not a killer.
Well, not. I think that he's a killer, but maybe that the gay lifestyle is deviant to the point where you're just looking for the next thrill. I'm not saying that's how I see it, but I almost feel like these guys obviously both know that they're each dangerous. Burns knows this guy's probably the killer, and the killer knows this guy's broken into my house. But they're still willing to go and have this this rendezvous, this fuckfest under, a train trestle or whatever. But it ends up becoming something more. And that's where the question of what happens at the end of this movie. So we'll set that up. These guys meet up and they sit on a park bench and smoke a cigarette.
Which I believe, I'm not 100% certain, and it would take some looking into. I'm pretty fucking positive the park bench that he was sitting on was the same park bench that James Remar was handcuffed to in The Warriors.
In The Warriors with the
with that cop.
With the cop.
Almost positive that fucking background looks exactly the same. I know it's Central Park and a lot of it looks the same, but even the curve in the walkway, I'm like, I fucking think that's the same exact fucking bench. But
I'll check it out. There's somebody on the internet that has investigated this. Yeah.
Has to be, yeah.
So they go and they're sizing each other up, right? This movie definitely, at least their supposed sexual encounter, is almost played out more like is it going to be a fight or are they going to fuck? Because even when you get the idea that they're super hostile.
Yeah.
Like they're sizing each other up. And even as they're undressing, you're still like, are they going to start throwing punches? When the guy says, what are you packing? Do you remember what size, Pacino says?
Party size.
He's party size. So here's
Is that
where
big
things.
or small? I don't know.
I don't know because party
I
size
guess
to
it's
me
big.
is small.
Party-sized bags, though, are
Yeah.
big bags.
Right, but a bag of party size Snickers is big,
Right,
but
Snickers are little.
but a
so,
party
yeah,
size Snickers is small.
I mean, who would say, "Yeah, I got a party-sized Snicker"?
Well, maybe he meant a chode. Like maybe he's like, I'm short, but a
I
Coke
think you
can.
meant,
I don't know.
You get a party-sized bag of chips, and it's
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure what he meant.
yeah. Party size is definitely vague.
ready to party. That's all we know.
So Pacino takes off his pants. Right, I think he gets his pants down.
Yep.
And then he says to Stewie, he's like, "Take your pants off." Stewie takes his pants off, and so at this point, I mean, obviously Pacino knows this is a killer, but Pacino makes the first move. He steps on his underwear and pants around his legs. Stewie pulls his knife out,
Right.
and Pacino, he gets hit, right? Pacino gets hit with a knife or no? Or he dodges it totally?
He dodges
No,
it.
He dodges it, and then he buries his knife into his side.
Yeah.
So I think Pacino pulls the knife first, but Stewie makes the first jab, which gets dodged, and Pacino stabs him.
Well, what it all comes down to in my mind is what Stewie says in the
Not
hospital
lethal,
after.
Not lethal, but
Right, he just stabs him in the side, but when after this, when Stewie is in the hospital and Servino's there and Edelstein's there and Burns is there, someone says, when you attacked Officer Burns, or I'm sorry, when you attacked Officer Burns, and Stewie says he attacked me.
right.
Because he did. Like Pacino 100% started the I guess the instigation of like the physical confrontation between the two of them.
Which now, John, I have to admit, is making me think that one of two things. Because now that I'm thinking about that scene when he's like, he attacked me, and then he's like, I didn't kill anybody. Because remember, Servino's like, or whoever was it Servino? He's like, you're going to get 20 years
Yeah.
for killing, this one guy who we got the DNA on that fucking quarter. That guy, by the way, was played the musical director in Staying Alive with Travolta. But whatever.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I knew I
But
recognized.
he's like, we've got your fucking DNA, so you're going to do 20 years. But if you cop to the murders of this, you'll do 8. And he's like, I didn't kill anybody. So now I'm starting to think he is either so crazy that he doesn't realize he's a killer, which kind of explains away him not suspecting Pacino or him not caring that Pacino was in his house, or he's not a killer. Because there is fan theory out there that Pacino is the killer all along.
I don't think
I don't buy it either,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying the way he reacted, the way he didn't immediately fucking kill Pacino when we saw Pacino in the park after he knows Pacino's been stalking him. He knows Pacino broke into his house. He knows Pacino read his letters, so he knows he's fucking onto him. The way he didn't fucking attack him right away leads me to believe that he either doesn't know he's a killer or he's not a killer.
I think he knows he's a killer, but it's the one time that he didn't kill someone. And that's why he's lying about I didn't kill anybody. But when he says he attacked me, he's 100% right.
Yeah.
Because maybe he was going to kill
made the first
Pacino.
move. Yeah.
Right. Pacino certainly made the first move. So let's just, Manster, let's round out the very ending. Let's wrap up what happens to Ted. Let's wrap up Burns going back to his apartment and how the movie ends.
Ambiguously.
You're now back in Ted's apartment, because they've already taken care of, Stewie and John Forbes in the hospital room. So now we're back in there. There's a whole bunch of cops. Sorvino is in there, and they come in and they're going into Ted's apartment, and they find Ted dead, covered in blood, stab wounds in his own bathroom. There's no sign of Gregory. Gregory, apparently left town.
Yeah. They say they're putting an APB out for him.
Yeah. And that's the scene where Joe Spinell comes in, and then Sorvino makes that connection because he sees his name, DeSimone. He's like, "You're 6th precinct, right?"
Yep.
So
That's the one that the fucking stool pigeon has fucking told him about way at the beginning of the movie.
Yep. So we see that, and how does that get resolved? I don't remember.
Well, it doesn't, but it's
really, it just goes to the next scene.
It's the scene where Sorvino's character starts to put the pieces together in his head because he says, who lived down the hall?
Forbes.
John Forbes.
That's right. And he finds out Forbes was a neighbor.
Right. And we didn't mention it, but like the reward that Edelstein or Edelman, whatever his name is, gives Forbes is he makes him a detective. That's the last scene between them, is he says, welcome to the detectives unit.
Yep.
But now he goes to this crime scene and he's starting to put it together that, like, you know, that he was right there this whole time.
Right.
So then he goes back to his apartment with Karen Allen.
Now he's back with Nancy.
Well, not yet. Not yet.
What do we miss?
First you see him in between those two scenes. You see him
he goes to
the gay bar.
Yeah, you see him walking from behind, so you don't see his
dressed
face
in
or
all
anything.
leather. Yeah.
You just see him dressed in all leather going into the gay bar.
So, okay. So when you said earlier on, I didn't want to jump in. You said he goes back after everything.
That's what I meant.
In my head, I was thinking, like, I don't remember that at all. Because when I saw that scene, isn't that scene an exact replay of the scene of the killer walking in the first scene? I know, I understand, but I think if you go back and watch the scene in the beginning where the killer walks in to the first club and the scene of Pacino's character walking in, it's the same fucking shot, just reused.
Okay, well, John, what's the next scene?
Well, the next scene, Lloyd, go ahead, give it to us.
And first of all, they make no bones about the fact that Pacino wears some of the same exact clothes as the killer.
Well,
those are all of the exact same clothes.
Well, exactly. That's what Larry's about to get to that you're about to get to.
There's even a scene earlier. I'm sorry, I know we have to go to the end, but there's a scene earlier.
He never wore those fucking mirrored aviators. Never. The killer always wore those.
Right.
But they're there now.
They're there. But there's a scene, I think it was after the stabbing in the woods, where you think you're seeing the killer coming home because it looks just like the killer, and he gets inside and he undresses and it's Pacino. So after that scene, the next to last scene where he goes back to the gay club, then you see him with his girlfriend Nancy, and they're in her apartment, and he's shaving, his face is covered with shaving cream, and you know, they're talking about getting back together, and he's like, well, I can't really decide right now. Let me just finish shaving, and just, you know, you get a close up of his face, and he's, you know, shaving off the cream, and you just don't know what's going on in his head at that point.
He tells her, I'm going to tell you all about what happened.
Yeah.
He says that. But while he says, just let me shave and I'll come out and talk to you. But then when she's out in the other room, she's going through this pile of clothes that Larry just brought up. The aviator glasses, the hat, that's all Stewart's clothes.
Yeah.
So now, you know, and we do get like the almost fourth wall breaking bit where as he's shaving, he looks in the mirror at the camera. And the movie ends.
And I shook my head before when you were saying, you know, that Greg killed him and took off, or Greg, whatever.
James
Remar.
Yeah.
Did he? Or did did Pacino kill him, and you're going to find his body parts floating in the fucking Hudson?
Well, exactly. I didn't say he killed him. I said they said there's an APB out for him.
Yeah,
right.
But it's in my head. So like to get into like the idea of this movie is that Pacino, in one way, shape, or form, Steve Burns has obviously been swallowed up by this gay lifestyle, and he likes it. And one of the things that anchors him to it is he has feelings for Ted. And the only way he can, and I'm just using this to be funny, but to fight the gay away is he has to kill Ted. I think he kills Ted and is gonna repress it and go back to
John, which is exactly what the killer's doing through the entire movie.
Right.
The killer is repressing his gayness because his father hates it, and he's killing people. He's killing gay people that his father would hate because he's trying to force away the fact that he's gay. So why isn't it Pacino? If that's what you're saying he did at the end.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I think it's interesting, and I do think this movie will be different on a second viewing for sure. I think I'm definitely going to see things differently. There are things you guys said in this alone that I felt like were up in the air for me, and now they make more sense. So, Manster, do we have box office on this one?
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
Yeah, I have a little bit. Of course, this was 1980, so Box Office Mojo really is trustworthy from 82 on. But I did find the top 10 of the year. It did not get the weekend. But so Cruising on the year made 19.7 million.
Oh wow, that's more
Yeah.
than I thought it would have made.
Yeah,
Actually,
came in number 36 on the
Okay.
year. Blues Brothers, number 10, 57. The Blue Lagoon, 58. Smokey and the Bandit 2 at number 8. Coal Miner's Daughter at number 7. Private Benjamin at number 6. Any Which Way You Can.
That's my fucking jam right there.
Yeah.
I love that
number
movie.
5. Airplane, ! At number 4. Stir Crazy at number 3. There's so many good movies on this list. 9 to 5 at number 2, and The Empire Strikes Back at number 1.
Okay.
All right.
Nothing like hey, 2 movies with bondage that year. You had Dabney Coleman in 9 to 5 and Cruising.
Yeah.
Yeah. To go back to the, I guess, controversy and all.
Did you notice the Gimp was in a lot of scenes?
Yeah. There was.
Hey, somebody brought out the Gimp.
I'm fairly certain during one scene as I was watching this, they kind of go across and there's just like a shot of him like standing in the corner, and I literally just went, "Go get the Gimp, bring out the Gimp." To part of the controversy and all those aspects of this film, 8 months after this movie was released, a madman with an Uzi went into the actual ramrod and murdered 2 people and shot up 8 other people who survived. And they didn't say it wasn't connected to this movie, but because this movie had come out and the way news cycles go, of course, people put it, in the same house as this. But he was a crazy person. He claimed that, God had told him to kill all the gay people.
Of course
But yeah, the actual ramrod, which is a club we see in the film. Let's rate this thing.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
All right, let's start off with Larry. Scary Larry, 0 to 5, 0 being the worst thing ever, 5 being the best. What do you give 1980s Cruising?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a movie I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed for a long time. I'm very glad every time I see the movie. I'm very glad that at least since this time, gay clubs are allowed to have air conditioning now.
Yeah, sweaty.
Because back then apparently air conditioning not allowed in gay clubs.
Yeah.
Very sweaty, very, very sweaty, very uncomfortable looking. Way too many people as well. I don't like that many people in one area. I do enjoy this movie. I always have. I get annoyed by its ambiguity, but I think that's intentional. I'm almost positive it's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It still doesn't make me less mad because I'm the kind of guy I like to know. I want to know. I want to just tell me. Was he the killer? Was he not the killer?
Pacino wanted to know because that was his major complaint that I brought up earlier. Right. Is he said Friedkin never told him.
I don't think Friedkin knows.
He said, have I gone gay or am I a killer or was I the killer? Right. And he said he felt like he was never directed or at least like told how to play it.
Right. Yep. So despite that, I still really enjoy this movie. For me, Cruising's a 3.5.
Manster, what do you got?
So I got a lot of notes on my rating, and I got to try and reel them all in because it might be just kind of scattered. But so I think, it's entertaining film. I mean, it's shocking. I think
shot very well, of course.
Yeah,
it looks great.
It's very blue.
It's very blue. It's very dark.
I actually love the title card, Cruising, and it just goes across the screen, like in white letters on a black background. I don't know why that really caught my eye.
But I think rather than giving us any reasons or any like the subculture, the S&M subculture, like maybe there's more story there, but I think it's like more shocking. Like everything's in there just to shock us.
Oh, this is make no mistake about it. This is an exploitation movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
This is an exploitation film. That's, I don't know if Friedkin would ever love hearing that, but that's what this is. Mm-hmm. This is a movie meant to shock you. It is.
I think, Pacino tells us, I can't handle it. I can't take it. I mean, we know that he has feelings, but we don't know really what the feelings are. He he never tells us, even his relationship with his girlfriend. It's like they don't really show us enough to understand what's going on. We know that obviously he's affected by what he's doing, but I just think it's lacking something. And it's the ambiguity, and it's very vague. I think it's trying to show us something. I know that sometimes movies like show you something and then make you think, oh, right at the end, oh, maybe it's something else. But I don't think they really did a good job formulating how to do that. And I think it tries to be clever, but I don't get the feeling that it's a clever movie. And the last but not least, the thing that bugs me the most, and this is just because of my logical brain, you can't show me like two different actors portraying the killer and then you kill one of them in a future scene. That just blows my brain up. And now you've just lost me for the movie. So although I know this movie has some good parts, I think I'm just going to go straight up the middle with like a 2.5.
All right. 3.5, 2.5. So here's what I think about this movie. If I were to just lay it out, I think it's a case of style over substance. I think there's great style in this movie. I think, whether or not gay clubs of that ilk were really like that or not, that doesn't really matter, because in this movie, they present them in such a way that I feel like it's a very lived in environment, right? I feel like, it's interesting, right? And Pacino is I think Pacino's okay in this. I don't think he's great, because he's kind of like neutral Pacino. There's never like a really like big, but that's the character too. Like Steve Burns is just like this guy who's just kind of like doing this job and very kind of like, he has this internal struggle, but we never get deep enough into any of the important enough questions in this movie, right? Yeah. Like what's going on with Steve?
Yeah, like that's what I was trying to say. That was a good way to say it.
There's a whole, like this movie essentially is a serial killer film that feels more like it's a film about him investigating something, but we don't really see enough of what he's investigating. Like I would have liked it much more if there was maybe a little bit more insight into the killer character. Also, I mean, when we get to the final answer of who the killer is, it's kind of flat. Like, it's the Stewart guy and he has an imaginary dad, or he's writing letters to his dead dad, or like, I don't know. I don't know how I felt about that, but there's so many interesting things happening in this movie otherwise. Like the idea of what's happening with the Steve character. I like the ending. I like the fact that you're starting to think like, has he not only possibly realized that he's a gay man, but he's also like fucking like now he's started killing people, like I like the idea that he's the one that killed Ted. And in my head, I think he killed Ted because he had to kill Ted, because if he didn't, you know what I mean? It was like he has to kill his feelings for this man. Like Karen Allen is his beard 100%. He goes back to her at the end when it's safe to go back to her so that he can kind of sink back into his reality and like his new job as a detective and everything. And he could just push all the stuff that he kind of got from the gay world away. But at the same time, there's it just doesn't go deep enough for me. But I did enjoy watching this movie. And I'm not kidding when I say I will watch it again, especially with the second pair of eyes, because I did not realize that the killers were different people. I did realize that this doesn't look, when they got to Stu, I'm like, this does not look like the same guy from earlier, but like, I didn't realize it was different actors. So stuff like that interests me, and the ambiguity interests me in the long run. I'm going to give it a 2.75. I think it's almost at a 3 for me. I'm not saying this to be a dick, but I wish they had gone a little more in on the killer angle than the gay club angle. Because,
right.
They like we said, it's not a joke. There's 58 scenes of him going to gay clubs. And I have no problem with that. But like we start to lose like what he's looking for. It becomes less about him being or trying to find this killer and more about him and his new lifestyle. Right. Yeah. So I'm going to go 2.75 for cruising.
I would think that the black guy in the cowboy hat would put that up to a 3, but
it was a 2.5 earlier.
Brought it up.
It was a 2.5 when I came into it tonight, but the black guy in the cowboy hat and some of the stuff we discussed, I don't know. I probably mentioned this before, but a lot of times I'll have an idea of what I'm going to say, but our conversations can greatly change them one way or the other. And tonight was a night where a quarter point went up based on some of the stuff you guys said. And also the very weird scene of the black guy smacking the shit out of Pacino. Who was that?
He's like, dude, and he just keeps asking. They keep asking him questions, and he's like, no, who was that?
Yeah, I do that. They're like, so were you at the Ramrod on the 29th? Who was that?
Because he just leaves the room.
Yeah, it's really weird.
So amazing. Did he have shoes on? I don't even know.
I don't even know. If he did, I bet they were cowboy boots because he had a cowboy hat on.
I think it was cowboy boots.
Of course it was.
All right, let's wrap this up, guys. Manster, you don't have to tell anybody where to find us this week because we're gonna go back in one more time. This week, instead of finding the pint, make sure to go to LOC, libraryofcongress.gov/LGBT-pride-month and check out all the resources. If your local town is doing anything for Pride and you're interested in it, go to their website. I know my hometown of Middletown had a huge parade a couple days ago, and they're doing all kinds of things. So, and that goes for probably a lot of people's towns. So check that out. And until next time, Manster, say the words.
You made me do that. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over!
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!